we're going to talk about some games first, and then we have a shorter Smoak Stack to get into. But I do have to leave some room on the back end because should I not let him bother me as much? Because Greg Sankey says things, and they're so imperialistic, and they're very
with the
hypocritical. Yes, but they're very hypocritical, and I'm getting tired of his, like, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not the same nonsense.
It's annoying. And this is from somebody whose team is in that conference, favorite team is in that conference. But at the same time, like, he's out there pushing his narrative. The only thing that really is going to be able to shut him up is consistently being able to knock those teams off. Somebody has got to win the championship, not in the SEC, for like 2 or 3 years in a row, and kind of check them. And until that happens, I don't think you're going to stop him being able to go out there and bolster the strength of, the SEC and everything that it entails. I mean, you need the Big Ten to win another one this year, somebody from the Big 12 or something to step up, put a couple of those and kind of kill that narrative. Because as long as the SEC is in the mix and as long as they have the top dogs out there, he's just going to keep doing this. There's nothing that's going to stop it.
Yeah. No, there's not. I mean, and again, like, he's doing everything he can to pull out all those stops.
Right.
So that it's not. And it's just, Garrett, I get so mad. And I shouldn't let it affect me.
Well, you're in a different position because you got the brunt of it last year.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably where more of your hatred and vitriol comes from in this.
Yeah, it does. It does quite a bit. I mean, it really, really, really does. But it's like, and I'm going to say it, like, if you guys haven't heard it, it's something he said on Feinbaum yesterday, which I'm sure Feinbaum was like, yes, dear leader, of course.
Yes.
But it's like, and here's the thing, if you're a Baylor or TCU fan, this particular comment is going to really make you mad.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to really, really make you mad. Now, granted, it affected you the very first year of the playoff, and then it was subsequently corrected in later years because I can't stand hypocrisy.
No, I get that.
I cannot stand hypocrisy. It is the most ridiculous thing. And I understand that people who are overtly hypocritical have no self-awareness, or they think that their thing is different, even though it's the same. Like, if you say, well, that's the same as this, they're like, well, no, mine's different because my cause is just.
Right.
Like, well, and the thing is, justice is not necessarily always in the eye of the beholder. Like, sometimes it's pretty cut and dry of what's just and what's not. So I hear him say it. And again, this is a very long tease to it. And we will get to it at the end because I kind of want to back end load this into Sam Khan.
Yeah.
At 3:30. But it's just,
it's what you come to expect at this point.
It does. But I just, as a human being, I know that, like, you guys are watching me. I've closed my eyes right now.
Trying to get some sin.
As a human being, when I hear this in any walk of life, it drives me insane. And I'll just tell you, as a married person, I've had to learn that there's levels of hypocrisy that I just have to accept.
Exactly.
Because the rules are different on either side of this game, but I'm not married to Greg Sankey. He never asked,
right?
But I would say no. But
sure,
I'm not married to Greg Sankey, so I can look at this. And again, he's not my wife, so he can't play the hypocrisy card. Mm-hmm. And look, when I point out that, like, and I know everybody watching has had this argument with their spouse. When they say, hey, I don't like when you do this, if they do the exact same thing, You just have to stop doing it the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be a fight that never ends and it's stupid. So you're like, okay, I hear you. But like bringing up like, well, is this different than that? Just asking. And then they're like, well, here's why that's different. Mm-hmm. I've prepared a dissertation. Please sit down. I've got graphs and charts. And you're like, I was just pointing out that it seems similar to me. But again, I don't think about these things at all ever, but you do. So but yeah, let's get into some of the games this weekend. I think in the Big 12, we talked yesterday on Triple Option and this about BYU and Kansas. Mm-hmm. And it's a very intriguing game for a 9-0 versus 3-6.
Correct. Because the
3-6 has started to look like everybody expected them to. And it may be too little too late for them to get to a bowl game because they got to go 3-0. And they've got the best team in the league right now this week. But I think the best game that we haven't spent enough time talking about is Arizona and Kansas State.
Arizona State and Kansas State?
Arizona State and Kansas State.
Absolutely.
Arizona State 7-2. They're not ranked. If they beat Kansas State, I would assume that they would be. And I'm going to ask Peyton about this later. Peyton Soysher will join us along with Sam Kahn, Grayson Grunhafer, Evan Abrams, Connor O'Gara, and Kenneth Davis. Our normal Friday lineup. Josh Neighbors not today, but anyway. But yes, our normal Friday lineup of chock full of analysts. And then, of course, me and Garrett bantering about, and Garrett might have to I should have brought a Sunday Scaries gummy. They're one of our new sponsors. I should have brought one because I can already feel why I would need it. So thank you to Sunday Scaries. Absolutely. And, but yeah, it just made me so tense. But Arizona and Kansas State in Manhattan, 7.5-point favorite. And you'll hear Evan Abrams talk about it specifically. Kansas State 7.5-point favorite at home. I buy that. Like, I think that'll probably be, if this game is 31-20, okay, I could buy that. But if this game is 38-35, I could buy that too.
Right.
If this game is even lower scoring than that, I could buy that. If it's a 3-point game, I could buy it. What Kenny Dillingham is doing is not too different than what Kalani Sitake has done this year. And then he just got this team believing that they can go out and win. And they can go out and do big things. And they also have BYU coming up. So BYU has gone along here, and they keep winning, but these next 2 weeks are mission critical, right, to keeping their head above water because they could – and, again, the Big 12 is a conference that we've seen unless apparently you're playing Oklahoma State or Arizona or UCF where you're going to – like most weeks you're going to win or you're not going to definitely win, right? And, yeah, we've seen some weird – I think the weirdest part is we've seen all these teams in these losing streaks and they haven't – that's the sad part about 16 teams is if you're in a plunge like Oklahoma State is, when do you get to play another team that's on a losing streak?
I mean,
if I'm in Stillwater right now, you're like, how? Like Arizona can't win. Why can't we play them? And I guess that I don't know if they do or not.
It's really the luck of the draw with the schedule, honestly, because you're going to see more and more of this year in and year out where the schedule flips and somebody's going to get a gauntlet and and somebody's going to have an easy path. That's kind of just the new world we live in. And as far as this game goes with Arizona State and Kansas State, I think it's going to be a really close matchup. I think this is one that is won on the ground. If Arizona State's defense can find a way to make Avery Johnson throw a couple of interceptions, I think that they can really solidify and get the win. I think that's really what this is going to come down to is Avery Johnson taking care of the football because as Kansas State has slipped, it's because he's starting to try to force the situation and win it on his own. And he's making passes and attempts that they're not there now, but in a couple of years with the accuracy increasing and everything and learning how to get better at reading the defenses that will be there. I don't know that Arizona State can go into Manhattan and get the win. I think they can make it very close. I think that I do have a feeling that they could beat BYU the next week, but I think this is one that K-State needs to get a signature win at home to help bolster their opportunity to make it to Jerry World, whereas Arizona State is just kind of playing spoiler right now. And I don't necessarily think they can get into the rank. I'm interested to hear what Peyton has to say, because I don't think that if they beat Kansas State, I don't necessarily think that gets them into the rankings. I think that can get them to closer, like right on the outside looking in. But definitely if they play spoiler next week, then they can get in.
If they beat Arizona State and South Carolina beats Mizzou,
South Carolina should beat Mizzou.
Or vice versa. But if South Carolina beats Mizzou, then I think that opens up a spot for them to get in at the bottom.
Right.
Right there where, I think, part of me thinks that you should maybe already be ranked, but, Louisville 6-3 and 19th.
Yeah. No, I get
it. So, yes, I mean, they've got a loss to, Miami. They've got a loss to Notre Dame. Who else is Louisville lost to? I can't remember. SMU. So Louisville's losses are like
top 25 teams.
Yeah, all playoff contenders. All playoff contenders. So I get that. Arizona State doesn't maybe have some of that.
And also, Arizona State started so much further back than where Louisville did. Like, nobody expected anything from Arizona State this year.
Yeah, Arizona State's losses are to Cincinnati and Tech.
And those are terrible. Terrible losses.
I mean, by comparison.
Well,
Tech, maybe not, but, Cincinnati, they're both not great. Plus, they don't have a signature win. Utah was 16th when they beat them, but Utah's not 16th now.
Right.
Nor were they 16th at any point post Cam Rising.
Yeah.
They weren't. They just weren't. So this week, next week would give them those signature wins. Also, this week, next week could put them, if they win out, there's a great shot that they're in the title game.
That would be phenomenal.
Because they would be 10-2, and then it would just come down to, the tiebreakers with who else would be 10-2 maybe.
I mean, at that point, you're looking at what, Colorado?
Colorado would have to lose again. Right?
But,
because they only have one loss.
Yeah.
But so Colorado would have to lose again. But if you win out, they have a reasonable shot that, depending on what happens in the rest of the 3 weeks for everybody else, they could be from, we don't know what's going to happen to them, to being at least in consideration.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think enough people we haven't talked about it enough because it's very interesting. Now, because Kansas State needs to win out for the same thing.
Correct.
They need to win out. The only chance that they have of getting in the game, either of these two, is winning out and then getting help. Mm-hmm. Now, part of that help for Kansas State would be winning out because they have Iowa State, Farmageddon at the end. If that one happens, then they've taken Iowa State, who's already on the outside looking in, completely out of it. But you'd also need BYU to lose. You need BYU to lose several times, lose out if you're Kansas State for sure, and you need something to happen to Colorado. But right now, the Big 12 championship game play today is BYU and Colorado.
I'm all for that. That would be fun as hell.
Just as I predicted in my predictions, and I was slammed. And this was obviously a dream I had recently and not real because that's how the Big 12 has been. So I'm really curious to see how that one goes. It's maybe the game in the Big 12 this week I want to watch the most. Elsewhere, outside of Georgia and Tennessee, the game I want to watch nationally the most, and just because it's an old school Southwest Conference rivalry in Fayetteville, is Texas at Arkansas. Got to say, I've got to credit the SEC a little bit here. Arkansas and A&M both got the Longhorns at home after not being in the league with them for different amounts of time. The Longhorns have obviously 30 years now, but A&M for a little less than half that. But not being in the conference at the same time, actually more. It's 92.
It's been a while.
It's been 33, 34 years since they're in the conference. Now they've played they kept that up, but it was once
every few years,
every 4 to 6 years they would do a 2-game series. And Arkansas has always played them well. And just to watch especially like even early on in the game, if Texas blows them out like Ole Miss did, nobody's going to be surprised. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's probably not going to go for Arkansas like Ole Miss, at least in the first half, because if you're Arkansas and you're walking out, your fans are going to be rabid about it because they hate Texas. They hate them. They hate them. They hate them. Like, it was a massive rivalry in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And then in the 80s, obviously the Southwest Conference, like, slowly deteriorated. And then it went away as far as the every year rivalry. And Arkansas never rebounded, at least wins on the field wise, from what they were in the Southwest Conference to what they've been in the SEC. Now, I mean, monetarily fine, but they are but national scene,
they're an afterthought.
And the SEC's been great for them money wise. I'm sure they don't want for much, but you know, they're the poster child of be careful what you wish for.
Them in Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. Them in Nebraska, be careful what you wish for. See, A&M, you know, if before you throw them in, or anybody else kind of in that, or Missouri,
they're the same.
They're the same as they were in the Big 12 with more money. Again, I remember I had a coworker at the radio station one time, and she was the program director. And she wasn't doing a very good job at that. She was kind of focused on other things outside of her life, and they took it away from her. Mm-hmm. And while I understand that that's upsetting, she was very upset, and I said, well, I mean, did they give you a pay cut? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, did they take away their money? She's like, no, it's the same money. You know, they did that. I was like, wait, hold on. I was like, you just got a raise. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, so you know all the work that you're doing, they've told you not to do that, and they're going to pay you the same amount of money. That's a raise. For A&M and Mizzou, they've been like, hey, just be an above-average football team, and we're going to double your cash.
Yeah.
All right.
The one that's got to be careful is Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's the one that's got to be careful.
Yeah. They are definitely going to have to live a different life for a little bit. Now, I think that eventually Oklahoma, because of the enthusiasm, will find a way, you know, they'll find a way, but they've had such a weird transition, right, in that. But one other game I want to talk about, Clemson to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, undefeated. Now they lost 2 games in a row. Clemson, you know, they are who they are.
Yeah.
Like, they're good. They're not great. They're good. They're not great. Like, that's Dabo's been able to keep their heads above water, and you can see, like, letting Garrett Riley kind of get a foothold and, you know, the offense changing. I think the transfer portal thing is clearly it's not going to ever be as big a deal to him because he recruits high schools so well and retains so well. The transfer portal thing for him is going to be when Georgia, you know, when you play a team like Georgia who doesn't use it like Florida State did,
right,
or use it like Colorado does, like why not just go get, you don't have a tight end? Well, you can go get the best one. You need a couple wide receivers and a DB? Go get them. Not 15, 20, 25, 40 guys. Like 4 or 5. Your all-star center goes, and the next guy's a redshirt freshman who weighs 287 pounds. You don't want him there yet. He's not ready. Well, go get a senior.
Right.
Go get a guy.
Like, they never replaced Makuba. Like, that you could have easily replaced Andrew Makuba.
Yeah, that's just it. Like, you lose an All-American. Yeah. Don't necessarily have to go getting another All-American's hard, but go getting a guy who's a veteran who's pretty good. You know, that's where I think, and if he ever just decides to do that, they'll be back where they were.
Yeah. Especially with the ACC, yeah.
Yeah, dominating. Can you imagine had they gotten Keon Coleman instead of FSU? Like, you know, what would that have done to a team that had a really great defense last year? You know, had they fixed that offensive line a little bit last year when you have Will Shipley? Like, that was a thing. So I've been on a soapbox about it, but they've still been good. They're just kind of like Penn State now, though.
No, that's a really good comparison.
They're kind of like Penn State where, all right, like, You can beat up on everybody else, but if they played SMU or Miami, which they don't, and now they probably won't because of the way the conference has gone, they probably lose.
They do. And as far as this game goes, in our picks, I took Pitt, and I'm kind of regretting that the more I think about it. I think that
you got time to change it if you need to.
I know, but I think Clemson's defense steps up in this game. I feel like Pitt has kind of been figured out to this point. Like they had their run, and now the juice is kind of catching up.
Well, they've got Louisville next week.
So I think they might have taken benefits of an easier schedule early on too. But at the same time, they're both really good teams, or pretty good teams. They're competitive. I think this could be a really fun game that honestly goes down to the wire. But the more I think about it, I kind of leaning more towards Clemson in this one.
Okay, let's rapid fire through some of these things here, Garrett, because we got to get to Sam in a minute. All right, DJ Lagway will return for Florida against LSU and is expected to start. He missed the Texas game last week with a hamstring injury that he suffered against Georgia. We'll see how ready he is to go, and is he going to be mobile, or is he going to have to rely on a lot of things? Look, Billy Napier doesn't have to play him to save his job anymore.
Yeah.
But he does have to, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel against Texas. I don't know how much of a difference Lagway makes in that game. Obviously, I don't think it'd be the same kind of blowout, but Texas didn't just destroy them because they couldn't score. They couldn't stop Texas either.
No, they couldn't.
Yeah, that wasn't that. Thomas Castellanos lost his starting job at BC. Well, the transfer portal doesn't open until the 9th, but he's already decided he's going to jump in the transfer portal, and he's not going to be with the team. I don't like this look.
I don't like this either.
I mean, he had his good run, but he's lost his starting job. You have to hang out for 3 more weeks.
Get better, compete.
Yeah.
That's what I don't. That bothers the hell out of me.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. So, that bothers me. All right, next up, Ben Ferguson's How podcast on Thursday. Senator Ted Cruz, who is now the head of the Commerce Committee, said that the Wild West of college sports is endangering the future and viability of the industry and plans to address it as chair of that committee. He said, look, Democrats, it was not a priority to them. And that's true. It was not a priority to them. I don't think it's a priority to him either. I think when he's asked about it, he says this. But he says he'll advance legislation on it. I wonder how they navigate the legislation with what the courts have ruled.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's the courts are still
the courts have ruled a certain thing, and so they just need to. Again, there's really pretty simple, basic things they can do, and part of it could just be, providing a structure of how it works, and not pretending like this is amateur sports anymore.
Yeah, that's the biggest part is the faking it.
Yeah, let's stop faking it. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know how he really feels about it.
I don't think he cares.
I don't know how. I don't know how he really feels about it. I don't know how a lot of the politicians on either side feel about it.
Don't care.
Other than you actually hear oh, this is bad that these kids are making all this money. Well, you can't prevent them from doing that. So you think that that's bad? Okay, that's your opinion, but fundamentally, legally, what do you do? Not just, I think this is ruining this. There's a legal part of it, and there needs to be some governance, especially protection for the athletes.
Right.
That needs some governance for sure. And then just some governance on what is what. But the NCAA, having the NCAA and Congress come to an agreement on something,
good luck.
Or if they both agree on the same thing, it's probably not something that's viable. Right? I don't know. So again, I don't know how Ted Cruz personally feels about it and what bills he would as the chair of the committee. I know in broad strokes what he said, but I don't know how he feels about it. And so if he's the head of the committee to advance a bill, it's going to have to wet his whistle. I don't know what will. He's not been very specific about that. And I do and if you're saying I'm sitting here just dumping on him, yeah, I do that quite a bit. But what I do agree with is I do think the future viability of the sport is in trouble if they don't figure out a way to make this regulated. So
something's got to be done.
Yeah.
And if he can do it, then go for it.
Yeah,
but
go
I
for it.
just don't have faith in any politician doing
No,
anything.
I don't. I just, I don't know how he really feels about it.
Right.
I don't, I have no idea. I have no idea how he feels about it. Texas A&M 12th Man Foundation. You get priority points when you make donations to the 12th Man Foundation. Now you get priority points for contributions to Texas Aggies United, the official NIL partner. So that applies starting today. Anything on or after today, you'll get points. So if you go ahead and drop a couple nickels in the Marcel Reed bucket, then you're gonna get better seats.
You got some good ROI against LSU. Jesus Christ. Still got PTSD from that.
Florida State AD Michael Alford shared this information in a booster town hall that says the Noles brand value and viewership ratings. He says he loves to look at TV numbers by market after big games and say we own the state of Florida now. You can't really see these charts so much on that, but they're right behind that. They're the top viewership in the ACC. They're beating the Gators in the rankings right now. Right now.
Yeah, right now.
It's a temporary thing. Do this here's the thing. People like watching Florida State currently because they're watching 13-0, a 13-0 diamond turn back into a lump of coal. Yeah. That's what they're doing. Coal's not even fair. It's turning from a diamond to dog crap.
Right.
Which is so appropriate given what happened, but they're watching that go from here to here. Next year, if 1-9 just turns into 3-6, they'll flip it.
Right.
You got to get better again, or you're going to lose your cachet. And here's the thing, and we're going to talk about this with Sam Kahn. So I want you guys to think about this during the break. On Paul Feinbaum yesterday, Greg Sankey says of a team picking up a potential third loss in the SEC title game, I would expect that the committee continues the form of thinking that these championship games, the 13th data point, is more of a reward and recognition for the work done. Brian Fisher tweeted this out. We've had Brian Fisher on the show back in the day. It's been a while, but he is not talking about the ACC and Big 12.
No.
And he's probably not necessarily talking about the Big 10 either, but he wouldn't say that because now they're joined.
Yeah.
They're there. But okay, Greg,